For 5 months, the United States and Israel subjected Iran's regional allies to one of the most intense aerial bombardment campaigns in modern history. These strikes were guided by a strategy known as the Octopus Doctrine. The theory suggested that by destroying the central head in Tehran, the various proxy groups operating as its arms would lose their direction and shrivel away. On paper, the strategy seemed to work. Israel's campaign in Lebanon assassinated much of Hezbollah's senior leadership, including its longtime Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah. At the same time, the network's logistics were fractured. The collapse of the Assad regime in Syria removed a critical bridge for Iranian weapons moving toward the Mediterranean. But the expected collapse never happened. Within months, Hezbollah was fighting back in southern Lebanon, Iraqi militias were striking oil infrastructure in the Gulf, and Houthi rebels had successfully resumed their blockade of the Red Sea. The world's most advanced militaries threw everything they had at these groups. Yet the network survived because the strategy was optimized to destroy a centralized hierarchy that no longer exists. 20 years ago, the groups now known as the Axis of Resistance were localized insurgents, almost entirely dependent on Tehran for weapons and instructions. In that old model, the Octopus Doctrine was perfect. Severing the center would instantly paralyze the network. But over the last 2 decades, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps changed its approach. Instead of just delivering weapons, they began upskilling their allies, transforming them from small cells into professional military organizations with their own internal structures. This shift decentralized the network's knowledge. Today, these groups no longer wait for instructions from Tehran. They share technical expertise and tactical innovations directly with one another. The Houthis, for instance, have moved from being students to teachers. They now operate training sites in Yemen, where they instruct Somali al-Shabaab fighters on how to pilot attack drones. Technical expertise is now distributed so widely that killing a single leader or bombing a central facility no longer stops the flow of information. The blueprints for the network's operations are stored in too many places at once. Western intelligence also assumed that by controlling the high seas and the global banking system, they could eventually choke off the flow of Iranian weapons. The Axis bypassed this by moving away from traceable military hardware. Instead, they began importing small, dual-use commercial parts, the kind of components found in everyday consumer electronics. Front companies purchase these parts through massive online retailers. These components are hidden inside the millions of shipping containers moving through the world's ports every day, camouflaged by the massive volume of global trade. Once the parts arrive, local engineers use them to assemble lethal, long-range drones for as little as $1,500. By building these weapons right near the battlefield, they have eliminated the need for risky, cross-border smuggling of finished missiles. Through this decentralized model, heavily sanctioned insurgent groups have effectively built their own military-industrial base, one that operates almost entirely outside the reach of the Western financial system. The modern Axis of Resistance functions as a densely interconnected, self-healing web of autonomous nodes. Designed to survive heavy losses, if a warehouse or supply route is destroyed, the network instantly reroutes resources through other nodes, keeping the system operational. This architecture makes the traditional playbook of escalating airstrikes and economic sanctions increasingly ineffective. Military force can destroy physical targets, but it cannot kill a network that is designed to reproduce itself. Since these groups can now rebuild their own arsenals using components from global commercial markets, airstrikes provide only temporary relief. Containing the threat depends on targeting the commercial choke points in the supply chain, which requires cooperation with Beijing, and pursuing political settlements with groups that have already taken root in their territories. Eliminating the leadership of a decentralized network provides the illusion of progress, but leaves the underlying structure intact. Neutralizing this resilient web isn't a matter of decapitation, it's a slow, messy process of untangling its connections.